welcome back to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with the movers and shakers, the film and TV makers, the producers, directors, writers, actors, cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, film editors, sound mixers, composers, stuntmen, VFX gurus, you name it, and I talk to them. Well, we're hot into award season right now with some of the most anticipated releases just opening in theaters this past weekend. I cannot talk this morning, people. Kiss of the Spider Woman and Tron Ares, along with a release in LA and New York for After the Hunt, starring Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield, and the horror film Black Phone 2 just opened on Friday. This coming Friday, we get Frankenstein from Guillermo del Toro, and I'm actually going to pay money to see that because it is guaranteed, with GDT behind it, it is guaranteed to be glorious and really take us into the Halloween season, as well as one of the hot contenders this award season. Now, speaking of Halloween, Behind the Lens is kicking off the season today with a terrific Making a Movie Within a Movie full of blood and hacking, madness, mayhem, and ridiculum, the WEEDHACKER Massacre. And joining me to talk about this bloody and funny gem are writer-editor Ray Spivey and actor-executive producer Allen Danziger. Recognize those names? Well, Ray's been on the live show with me before, talking about his film that he wrote, directed, edited, Storage Locker, which if you haven't seen it, it is a really good thriller. It's a great nail-biter. And as for Allen, did you ever hear of a little film called Texas Chainsaw Massacre? And a character affectionately called by fans Chainsaw Jerry? Well, that's Allen, and we've got him coming up momentarily. But first, we're going down under with writer-director KIAH ROACHE-TURNER and his World War II film Beast of War. I'll let you in on a little hint. The Beast is a bloodthirsty great white shark. I always enjoy speaking with KIAH and watching his films. So creative, so well done, so entertaining. And by the way, have you guys seen his film Sting? Spiders? If you haven't, check it out. It is fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, that's exactly what Beast of War is. And that's due in no small part. Yeah, I told you. I'm having trouble talking this morning. I don't like dental work. And that's due in no small part to KIAH's use of practical in-camera effects and an animatronic shark. No CGI here, folks. And thank goodness. You all know how particular I am when it comes to sharks and shark movies. Inspired by the real-life story of the HMS Armada, which was sunk by Japanese Zeros in World War II while crossing the Timor Sea, along with some personal World War II experiences of KIAH's own grandfather, Beast of War is the tale of a young troop of Australian soldiers who must find a way to survive the harsh seas on a quickly shrinking life raft. Made from a piece of a side of a ship that was still floating after being blown to smithereens. Hundreds of miles away from anywhere, they must confront interpersonal conflicts, enemy attacks, and the advances of one very, very large and very, very hungry great white shark. Written and directed by KIAH, the Beast of War stars Mark Cole-Smith. Get ready. This is leading man action. This guy is the real deal. And we need to see him in some Hollywood movies. Just saying. But his stars, Mark Cole-Smith, Joel Nankervis, Sam DeLeach, Lee Tiger Halley, Sam Parsonson, Maximilian Johnson, Tristan McKinnon, and Aswan Reed. With a brief amount of time to dive into the making of Beast of War, you know there are certain publicists out there who cause problems on timing and interrupting on the talent, stepping on them while the talent is talking, as happens in this interview. So I apologize for that. But despite the brief amount of time we have to talk about Beast of War, KIAH highlights the challenges of working with a practical shark effects, which interestingly were inspired by some of KIAH's own work on Matthew Holmes's Fear Below. Now, as you may recall, I interviewed Matthew about Fear Below and his level of authenticity in practical effects. And wouldn't you know it, KIAH also called on the expertise of production designer Esther Rosenberg and costumer vintage prop houser Tracy Rose Parks for Beast of War. Here, KIAH emphasized the use of a 40-meter indoor water tank and innovative lighting techniques, courtesy of his DP Mark Wareham, to create a realistic and atmospheric setting. In addition to the lighting, Wareham's lensing and camera blocking and dutching is unreal. Beyond the visual grammar and the visual tonal bandwidth, the soundscape is critical to the film, and KIAH turned to folklore for the film's sound design. The sound fuels suspense, and its layering is so realistic. As you'll hear him discuss, KIAH wanted the shark to have a sound, to have some kind of sound, similar to what Spielberg did with the yellow barrels in Jaws. Folklore delivered by incorporating an air raid siren they placed in the shark's side. Talk about innovative, huh? Superb production elements, amazing performances, particularly from Mark Cole-Smith and Joel Nankervis, and a shark to die for. Beast of War delivers on every level. So take a listen as KIAH Roache-Turner talks Beast of War. Hey, KIAH.
Hey, Debbie. How you going?
I am so happy to speak with you again. I mean, we last talked for Sting. We've talked for Wormwood over the years.
Well, zombies, giant spiders, sharks. What's next?
Hey, everything that you do, I'm thrilled with, KIAH. But especially, I was so excited when I saw the blast for Beast of War and it was sharks. Because after what you did with spiders, I was like, okay, I got to see this. You just...
Yeah, I was pretty relaxed with spiders because there's not many great giant spiders out there and I'm really scared of them. So I knew I'd probably do something good. But I was terrified with sharks because you're always kind of creating in the shadow of Spielberg. And I was just like, oh, please don't mess this up. Don't embarrass yourself. You know what I mean? So the stakes were high on this one.
And it's funny because Matthew Holmes told me something similar when I talked to him about his World War II shark piece, Fear Below. But I got to tell you, you knocked it out of the park. I am so tickled that like Matthew, like Spielberg, you actually have a shark there. It is not CGI. Because this makes...
It's funny that you mentioned Matthew and Fear Below, actually, because I ended up using the same company, Formation FX, to create my shark. And I actually was helping out a little bit with some of the shark reshoots on Fear Below. So I got to sit down and watch and see how the shark worked on Matthew's film. And so I took all these notes and was able to kind of use that as a test run for my film. So I thank Matthew very much for that opportunity, you know.
Aren't you the sneaky one, KIAH? Look at that.
Oh, mate, you take your information wherever you can get it. And if I can sneak on a set and see how it's done, then, I'm more than happy to use that information for my own film. You know?
Yeah. So your shark work is superb, including the mouth, the approaches, and this is where your DP, Mark Wareham, stunning work, because you shot this in a tank. So everything is manufactured. Granted, it's contained, so it gives you great ability when it comes to creating that fog bank, making things, hazy and not visible, but it lets Mark really hone in on ECUs in some very, very pivotal moments while bringing us, your color on here is spectacular, KIAH. Spectacular.
Yeah, well, when we sort of realized that we'd have to do this in a giant indoor studio water tank, I sort of sat down with Mark and I was terrified that this was going to turn into something that looked very studio and looked fake and all this blue screen. And I was like, look, the only way for us to pull this off indoors is to go back to the old practical way of how they used to do stuff 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's build the biggest indoor water tank in Australia, 40 metres long. I mean, that was a whole story unto itself. But let's fill the studio with fog and, you know, just really light it up with coloured lights, you know, these dusky blues and blood red sunsets. And, you know, let's put, bioluminescent green neon lighting in the water, you know, so that at night it looks like some kind of steampunk science fiction film. And let's just go all out with the imagery. And really stick to practical effects, whether it was with the shark or with the photography, so that you know, we can just get rid of the idea of, you know, this kind of fake world that we were building. And so in my mind, that was the only way that we could kind of pull this off, is to just make it as practical as possible, and just really go insane with the lighting and shoot it like an old German expressionist film, like Nosferatu, with a fin, and really approach it from a design point of view, you know, very much like the way Coppola approached Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula back in the sort of late 90s. And so that was the palette that we were working from, and Mark got very excited when we started having those conversations, and he really pulled it off. He's one of the best DOPs I've worked with.
Mark's work is exemplary. And I have to say, what also helps here, because you're in the contained set, and after our ship has been blown up and we're floundering in the water, and finally find a piece of ship to turn into some kind of survival raft, you are working with the incredible Esther Rosenberg, who, from what Matthew had told me for Fear Below, she has the most impressive collection, access to the best World War II and World War I vintage stuff around down in Australia.
Well, it's a combination of Esther and Tracy Rose Spark. So Tracy Rose Spark has been doing, you know, all of the war films in Australia for many, many years. She's a costume designer, but she's also just got warehouses full of, you know, like 1940s era everything. So when you want like a box or a phone or a cabinet or any kind of prop, she's kind of just got it. So she just brings all that stuff to set. She's amazing to work with. And Esther is the production designer. I met her when, you know, before she'd actually made a feature film. She was quite young, and I gave her her first job as production designer in the industry on Wormwood Apocalypse. It's the best move I've ever made, you know. And, you know, she's incredibly talented. She's one of the best designers in the country. So the look of the thing, you know, I really have to thank those two wonderful women, Esther and Tracy, because without them, the film just would be half a film, you know?
Yeah, I was tickled when I saw the authenticity of the armament, of this, of that, of the ship, the apportionments in it, the equipment, the ammunition. And then when I saw it was Esther, I was like, okay, now I know. Now I know.
Yeah, she's a bona fide genius. You know, you don't get to work with many of them, but yeah, she's pretty special.
But, you know, a big element of this film that just really stands out for me is your sound design. The sound design here
it's a company called Folklore, and oh my God, again, I've been working with them since Wormwood Apocalypse for the last 3 films. And, they add 30%, you know, and that's a lot of percent. They're geniuses.
Well, I mean, we're sitting there, and even at the 19-minute mark, the ship is at sea, air raid sirens, the ship is hit. We've got Mark's great footage inside the ship, after the hit, and then outside, the underwater stuff. But then we have almost total quiet, and then suddenly an emergence to the surface. We've got sound, and it's a cacophony. Bullets from the planes, the plane engines, the sound of water, Leo grunting, yelling. Absolutely phenomenal. And you can hear each piece of the sonic world. Just amazing.
Yeah, and they're great at Folklore. I'm able to sit down with them before we even make the film, because I'm like, they're all really good mates of mine. We've been working together for years, so I start to have sound meetings well before we shoot. And it was just in one of these meetings, I was like, guys, how can we have the shark make a sound? You know, like Spielberg's got those yellow barrels. We need to be able to know where the shark is. But, you know, we're hidden in fog. It's night. You can't see the shark. The shark's underwater. You know, obviously you've got the fin. But, like, we need a way for them to be able to feel the presence of the shark. And I think one of them was like, oh, what if we lodge an air raid siren in its side? And I'm like, that is genius. And so, yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, like there's this broken air raid siren that gets lodged in the side of the shark. So as the shark sort of swims through the water, this broken air raid siren screeches like some kind of howling banshee. And so from a sound and sonic perspective, like we're sort of playing with the idea of the Hound of the Baskervilles and, you know, somebody trapped on the foggy moors, and this beast is circling them and sort of howling out in the darkness, and sort of so we were able to play with some of those gothic elements with our shark, you know, and that's all just sound design stuff,
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it just impeccable. But then we have to look at the story itself and your impeccable casting. Mark Cole-Smith, for my money, action hero, leading man quality, and the way you have written this script, focusing on his character of Leo and the connection he has with Joel Nankervis's Will. I love to see that bonding. But then, you know, you really mix things up when you throw in the character of Des Kelly. And Sam does an amazing job being a total jackass. You got to have one.
Yes.
In every military...
You got to have a jackass, you know, and especially when it's 7 guys on a raft, you know, you have to get the dramatic dynamics right. You know, everybody's got to play a certain part, you know, and you've got to have the jackass and the hero and the, you know, the sort of scared, you know, young guy, and all of these, you know, characters are required, you know, for something like this that effectively turns into, you know, something that's a little bit more theatrical, you know, where you just got a bunch of people on a small stage, and you've got to, you know, keep the audience interested. But yeah, I mean, with Mark, I didn't cast Mark. I wrote it for Mark and just crossed my fingers and hoped he'd say yes. I've been circling him for years. He's one of the best actors we've got, and I don't think anybody else in this country could have pulled it off. So I was very lucky to get him. He's a bit of a Gary Cooper. He's a bit of a star, you know. So he can do the rugged hero, and, you know, he's got this ability for sort of joyful, luminous humour, and he can kind of do it all, and he can do all his own stunts. And he's a free diver, so he can dive like 10 meters down and hold his breath for like 3 minutes. So it was very important that we had that element, and so we're very lucky with the cast. Everybody worked out very well.
Well, I know they've just given me the 1 minute mark here, so I have to ask you about the significance of this story, because it was inspired by a real story that happened, and how you took that inspiration to develop something with this kind of brotherhood and camaraderie, and then bring in your visuals to really focus on the intensity of the situation. How did you use that inspiration for this?
Well, it was inspired by a true story, the sinking of the HMAS Armidale in 1942, halfway between Darwin and Timor. I did a lot of research into that real event, and pretty quickly realised that I didn't really want to tell that story. I mean, partially out of just respect for the families of the people who went through that horrific thing, but also it was too real. I was just like, oh, this is a real horrific story, and I can't turn this into a piece of, you know, sharky entertainment, you know. And so I took inspiration and just kind of went off and made my own thing. But, you know, once we got to the end of it, I was like, oh, I think we did this pretty well. I felt like we'd earned, you know, we'd all just gone through, you know, such a cinematic hellscape, and I felt like it was respectful enough for us to put inspired by true events at the start. Not based on, but inspired by. And because my grandfather had died in World War II and I had access to his letters, I was able to sort of put a lot of what I learned about him into the character of Leo. And so, in a weird way, this film is probably my most personal film, because I've put a lot of, you know, sort of myself and my family and Australia's own, you know, pretty insane war history into it. So I'm hoping that we've crafted something that's a little bit more than just your average sharksploitation film. You know?
It definitely is. KIAH, job so well done. I can't wait to see where you take me next. And and thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today. Can't wait till next
Thanks
time.
so much, Debbie. I've really enjoyed this chat. Thank you for picking us to write about. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, KIAH. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Debbie. See ya.
And that was KIAH Roache-Turner talking Beast of War, which you can see right now in theaters and streaming on digital. But now, let the fun begin with Allen Danziger and Ray Spivey and the WEEDHACKER Massacre. This is Ray's second trip to Behind the Lens. He last appeared on the live show with me back in 2023, talking about his demonic thriller Storage Locker. And I am thrilled to have him back, this time with his partner in crime, Allen Danziger. And when you hear these two, yeah, they're partners in crime. These two are not only tons of fun together, but each brings something terrific to the film and to this interview. Now, some of you may recognize Allen's name, as Allen is legendary in the horror industry, thanks to his turn as Chainsaw Jerry in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But after a 48-year retirement from acting, Allen has returned to the screen in the WEEDHACKER Massacre, and he is a hoot. He's also an executive producer. So just what is the WEEDHACKER Massacre? From Ray's fertile and creative mind, this is the story about the remaking of a bad horror movie by the cast and crew of the WEEDHACKER Massacre film, who go to the site where the real murders occurred 10 years ago. Bad acting, bounced payroll checks, and the killer's return threaten what is to become the worst movie ever. Directed by Jody Stelzig and written by Ray Spivey, and you might recognize Jody's name. Jody is an accomplished stuntman. And Ray also serves as editor on the WEEDHACKER Massacre. This is filled with weird and wondrous characters like Digger, Skunk, Doofus, Rufus, and Mayor Dick Gunter, Willy Wonder, and Poker Face, all played by a talented cast. Among them, Allen Danziger as the sheriff, Sheriff Danzenshoes, Sean Reyna as Poker Face, David Trevino as Willy Wonder, along with Parrish Randall, Jody Stelzig, and more. As we hack into the making of the WEEDHACKER Massacre with Allen and Ray, Ray shares the inspiration behind the film, which is that of a friend's hair and the concept of an indie film group facing challenges in making a film. Now, if that doesn't spike your attention, I don't know what will. Highlighting the large cast, the fun on the set, the music, and the complexity of filming a film within a film, there are plenty of laughs in our conversation, many of which are inspired by the antics of the film itself. Filled with behind-the-scenes anecdotes, perhaps the greatest revelations and fun come from Allen Danziger himself as he talks about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the fan love, and, yes, Chainsaw Jerry bobbleheads, his 48-year absence from acting, and some fun surprises. And yes, the three of us have some great ideas for merch, which we also talk about. And I do have to give a big shout out to Allen, who sent me a Chainsaw Jerry bobblehead after our interview. It is fantastic, along with an official WEEDHACKER Massacre coffee mug. So I got merch. I'm happy. I'm beyond happy. So take a listen as Allen Danziger and Ray Spivey talk about the WEEDHACKER Massacre with some Texas Chainsaw Massacre fun thrown in for good measure. I am so tickled to talk to both of you today about WEEDHACKER Massacre. I will be brutally honest with you. I laughed my ass off, beginning to end. Laughed my ass off.
That's music to my ears for sure.
Well, I'm glad that it is, Allen. Where did the idea for this ridiculum start? Ray, I'm really wondering what's swirling around in that brain of yours.
So does my wife. Basically, Allen, when he was in the Chainsaw Massacre and about that age, he had this amazing head of hair. And we've been friends for about 5 years and been talking about it. And the idea is, what if that hair were impenetrable? And we kind of came up with some goofy ideas. And then as we started talking about it, we said, yeah, what would happen if a really bad indie film group went to the same site where murders happened 10 years ago, and they were running out of money, but they, were running out of actors too. They kept disappearing for some reason. And what would that story go like? So we ended up with the WEEDHACKER Massacre.
Oh my God. Well, I just think it is a hoot. A hoot and a holler, guys. Now you come up with this great idea. This is a huge cast that you have. You have so many moving parts, and a lot of people who have never been on a film set and don't really get the mechanics of making a film, sometimes it's more difficult to make it look like you're doing it badly than it is to inadvertently do something badly. So I'm curious about the madness and mayhem that was unfolding for this production.
You're right. This film was much bigger than we imagined, right, Alan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, compared to what Chainsaw was, there was like 6 or 7 of us, and this was like a huge cast. And I have to give Ray an incredible amount of credit for just his calmness, his equanimity, and just nothing seems to fluster him, or he doesn't show it. And everybody on the set, they were almost crying when it ended. They didn't want it to end. They were having such a good time.
Amidst the madness and the mayhem and the murders that are unfolding, it did look like people were having a good time. You don't get that kind of freewheeling frivolity of movement. People are going into, we got a weed whacker going, or a weed hacker, whatever we're gonna call it. Probably for licensing, you need to call it weed hacker and not weed whacker.
Right, you're very observant.
Oh yeah, to see this film, and I'm just waiting for all the mothers against whatever, everybody to come out of the woodwork saying, "Oh my God, our children, you're encouraging bad behavior." I foresee this. I foresee this.
Well, that's a good warning. Hey, we will have to say you have to go after the weed whacker people if they use their current tool and it causes any damage. However, if they use our custom blades that we'll end up selling for $39.95, then you can blame us. But no, we haven't thought about that. The parental kickback.
But now wait a minute, $39.95. But are you throwing in free shipping?
We'll have to, Alan. Yeah, right.
Okay.
You always, and maybe a bonus poker face mask with it.
Oh yeah, you're ahead of us. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, you got to think of the marketing out there. Now, you get this great idea, this hilarious idea. You start lining up Now, I got to ask you first, Ray, writing this, the character names that you have come up with. We have Doofus Gunter, Rufus Gunter. I love your character, Alan. Sheriff Danzin Shoes. We've got Digger Gunter, Skunk Gunter, Mayor Dick Gunter, Aunt Jackie Gunter. And then we get Poker Face, Willie Wonder, the cinematographer Freddie, which is just hilarious. Out of all of this, we've got, cinematographer Freddie. And of course, DJ the producer. How did you come up with these names?
It was tough. Now, Alan came up with Poker Face and his own character's name. Alan, you want to tell her about how you came up with the sheriff's name?
Yeah, well, the dancing shoes comes from a friend that I had when I was in graduate school here at UT. His name was Ralph McElroy, and he had trouble pronouncing Danziger. So when we would come together, he would say, "Oh, here comes Mr. Dancing Shoes."
Oh my God!
That just kind of, I got a kick out of that. And unfortunately, he passed away, and there's like an homage to Ralph. He was a wonderful guy, and he spoke Russian, and my dad was from Russia, and so I just have great feelings for him because he spoke fluent Russian to my dad when my dad visited me while I was in graduate school here in Austin.
Oh my God!
And I was running out of names for Gunters, and I had like penned a name of one gunter would be Blazer Gunter. And so we go out to Lockhart, Texas, way out in the country, and we're going to, it's like location scouting, and we run into the guy that runs the farm for the folks that own it. And he's got like that long mountain beard and great blue eyes and everything. And honest to God, his name was Blaze. And I said, oh my God, you want to be in the movie? And he was. He played Blazer Gunter. But it was hard to keep coming up with these names.
Oh my God. But yeah, Allen, I thought your name, that just made me laugh out loud. That was funnier than Doofus and Rufus. I have to say. When you started casting, I mean, and these are just your main people. Then you have all the other splinter gunters running around and all the poker face masks out there. At what point did it dawn on you guys, this is a hella large cast, and where are we going to get the money for all these people? You must have 50 to 75 people running around.
Right. I think it hit us when we got the catering bills. Then we kind of realized, what have we done? But, they did eat a lot, but it was so great. We had 15 stunt people, and as you said, probably another 50 extras in different scenes and everything. But it was just kind of like, like Army recruiting or whatever. We just go out and find folks and, test them real quickly, and they could do the few lines they needed. But, we also had friends contact friends, and it just, again, the word of mouth that they were all having so much fun on the set, like Allen said, really, really helped us.
Or was it that you had really good food at craft services?
I think that was it too. You're right.
That's always the big thing. What do you have for craft services? Now, basically, we've got here a film within a film. So I'm curious. It's like, yes, we see the madness and mayhem of the subject film as it's unfolding with all the lunacy and ridiculum. But then we have the film that you are actually shooting of the other one being created. How challenging was that for you guys? I know we don't have Jody available to talk about the directing of this, but I'm sure the two of you have really good insight as to the challenges that you faced actually filming the film within the film.
Right. Jody had been my assistant director on my previous film, and I think learning from that experience, I had actually gotten burned out doing the producing, the directing, the writing, and everything. So I brought Jody in as director, did a fantastic job, and obviously for some of those big scenes, like the fight scene at the end, Jody, I, and our assistant director, we were all with different groups doing the choreography. Jody also served as our stunt director. He's a stunt man by profession, so that helped immensely. But overall, just the cast was so good, and some of these folks are not actors, and we still can't believe what a great job they did. Like Freddie, the DP, he had done a small film for me before, but this his name's Wally Ingram. This was his first, big speaking role, and we just crack up every time we watch him. He's so deadpan. We're just odd that you like the film so much. So
I just think it's spectacular. How much equipment, logistically, because you got a lot of night shoots here. So how big was the actual crew complement with cameras and with lighting, especially for so much of this at night?
We shot with one camera as our main camera. The lighting crew, basically, I want to say we had a gaffer and 3 super professional assistants, and then we had about 3 or 4 production assistants at various times. And so, but they were constantly working themselves to death. They did a fantastic job. Our gaffer is Mike Gonzalez, who's a very good old pro here in Austin.
Wow. Now, the big question for me is for Allen. You retired from acting for 48 years, and a couple years ago, you decided to come back. What made you want to act in the WEEDHACKER Massacre?
I met Ray a few years ago, and he said, Alan, and he wrote a part for me in a movie that he did called Storage Locker, and he asked if I would do it, and I said okay, and it was something, and I think at the end of it I got a standing ovation, and I think maybe that they were just happy I could get through it. But anyway, that was my first coming back to it. And then a few years ago I got called to do the voiceover for an homage for John Larroquette, who does the voiceover in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I did the voiceover for Cannibal Comedian. So I had that going, and then when WEEDHACKER came about, and Ray said, Alan, I'd like you to be a hero in this one. You get to knock somebody out. I said, I'm your man. And they were just terrific. They worked with me because, when you're older, it's not that easy memorizing lines. And they were just very, very supportive. And as a result, I had a great time. And the cast, I think, had a great time meeting me and listening to some of my stories. So it all worked out.
Well, I'm sure that they loved meeting you, Alan, because if they're doing a film like WEEDHACKER Massacre, they obviously know the genre. And if they haven't seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they are woefully deficient in their cinematic experiences.
Debbie, the thing that wherever I go on planes or whatever, whoever I meet, once they find out who I am, a smile comes on their face. Most of them have seen it. If they haven't seen it, they know about it. I have yet to meet somebody that has never heard of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Wow. That has to it has to give you a good feeling after all these years since the film was made.
Oh no, it's a great feeling. I mean, that you can bring, joy, especially in the world today, man. We need some smiles, we need some laughs, and we need to be more into a healing modality. So yeah, it gives me great pleasure.
Well, you're getting kids very, very young coming up to you with pure hero worship.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting kids as young as 6 and 7 or 8 that have seen
Wow.
this movie, and I've said this. My son, when this movie came out in '74, I just took Jason, who was like 5, 6, just to see his dad in the coming attractions. That's 50 years ago, Debbie. He's still in weekly therapy.
Well, God only knows what's going to happen now when he sees WEEDHACKER Massacre.
I know. I'm in trouble.
Now, something that I have to commend you on, Ray, with this story, there actually is some really sweet kernels that this is based upon. We've got Willy Wonder, who is actually quite a sweet character, and even Poker Face has some really decent tendencies, albeit he likes weed hacking. But, how important was that to you? You could have just gone throw even more caution to the wind and gone huckledybuck into insanity. But you do ground this. We've got Willie, who he's got a torch for candy, and they're really sweet. I love the line where he says, oh, my girlfriend. She goes, no, I wasn't, but now I am. Stuff like that. It's just like, oh, and to see it in a film like this. So I'm curious for you in writing this. How important was it to have some of those really nice moments and that grounding?
It's real important because we really wanted to pay homage to all the various types of movies that are out there, but to make it a comedy, and so we didn't really want it to be flash. And so it was real important that the audience really likes the characters, and of course it helped when we cast and some of this, I think I'd written the part for Willy Wonder for David Trevino because David had been in my last movie, and just knowing what David's like and everything, of course, gives you a great leg up. And Molly Sakonchek was in my last movie, too. She played a little bit part, but wowed us so much. I had to keep asking her, you sure you didn't act in college or high school? And she said no, but the chemistry that the various groups within the movie had just helped us so much in developing these characters. And we have to give a huge shout out to Sean Reyna, who plays Poker Face. This is his very first movie, and he was telling us the other day how he felt so powerful with the mask and the weed hacker, and Sean's like 6'5", 290 pounds, and when he walked on the set, I mean, it was frightening. In fact, some of our student interns who were on set kind of like, backed up a few steps. But Sean's actually, like he says, he's a gentle giant, and that kind of helped picturing that in Sean to help write the part. So the actors, everybody played a really good part, and we played up Allen coming from New York and being coming to Texas, and maybe a sheriff not being truly loved.
Oh, come on. Who couldn't love this sheriff? Please.
That's right.
Given the nature of this film, was the script adhered to pretty much as you wrote it, or was there a lot of improvisation happening out there?
I have to say it was very close to the script. We did change the beginning quite a bit because we felt we needed to give the viewers more clues as to what was happening. So that's why Allen makes the kind of documentary style appearance at the beginning of the film. And we kind of felt that really helped. And then once we kind of plugged in Britton Buchanan's music, I'll let Allen talk about Britton, that the song, The Ballad of Weedhacker Willie, really fits in that intro. Allen, you want to tell us about Britton?
Britton is just an incredible young guy. He was actually runner-up on The Voice about 6-7 years ago when he was only 18, Debbie.
Oh, wow.
And he's a huge horror fan, and he got in touch with me and asked if I would do a podcast with him. And I said, yeah, and he just got all my humor and whatnot, and as a result of the podcast, he loved Chainsaw. We became good friends, and then as the movie developed, I asked him if he wouldn't mind writing a couple of tunes, and he actually took a song that he'd written about me called The Ballad of Chainsaw Jerry and just changed the words, made it even better, and that became the Ballad of Weedhacker Willie. And then there's another song that's like called Hammer to the Head. These are great songs, and it just adds to the ambiance of the whole make and look and sound of the movie, Debbie.
Well, I have to tell you, I watched this film yesterday afternoon. I could not get the Weedhacker Willie song out of my head for the rest of the night.
I love you, Debbie. I got to meet you in person at some point.
That is it is so catchy. If you listen to the lyrics, it is so funny. But that
it was. And a lot of it is based on truth. It's based on my life.
So how handy are you with a weed hacker, Allen?
Well, I do some gardening around here, but I'm not that handy. Not that handy.
That song,
I'm from the Bronx.
Yeah, well, I'm from suburban Philly, so yeah, I get it. But yeah, that song is just so catchy, and the music in the film overall it suits it. It works well.
Well, thanks. We fortunately had a library of other music to do. We do, I think, one other song to fit in there, and it just remarkable how it seemed to fit together. It was really kind of like a miracle.
Now, I gotta ask about armadillo meat. What the heck is that?
First of all, for our kids out there, you don't ever eat it. As somebody pointed out to me after they were reading the script, that you can get leprosy from armadillo meat. So I had to change that in the script that whatever the manufacturer was of this jerky was disease-free. It's fiction, kids, so remember that. But Allen had the idea about them living out in the woods eating armadillo meat in a van by the river. And we got that actual armadillo there off of eBay. Somebody had taken the armadillo, taxidermied it, and made it into a purse.
Oh, my God.
I know. It was so crazy. It had to be in the movie.
A side thing, actually, I have, when I go to conventions, I have my own beef jerky. It's called Chainsaw Jerry's Killer Beef Jerky. And on the blade, it says, "We were the meats."
Oh. Why does that not surprise me, Allen?
It's a dare. I know. I knew it wouldn't surprise you.
I am not surprised at all by that revelation.
There you go. And the other thing is, a few years ago, I was scrolling through a chainsaw website. It was around December, and I'm scrolling, and all of a sudden I see the same model van that I drove in the movie, and it's up on blocks, and there's a phone number, and I ended up calling the phone number. The fellow that answers, his name was Scott Key, and you won't believe this. He's the great-great-great-great-great-great-nephew of Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, my. Well, did you offer to buy that van?
Not only did I offer, he brought it down. I took it to my mechanic. He redid it, and then we repainted it. Like $20,000 later, I take it to events when I can.
You didn't let Jody have his way with it during this film, though.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, we couldn't. We decided to go with a different vehicle, and so we found a 1976 Ford station wagon.
Yeah.
And we hand painted it that gross yellow. And that is actual fake wallpaper wood paneling on the side of it. But every clunk and gas you hear that engine in the movie is real.
Oh, I believe that. Because it looks like, I was thinking it was a Country Squire, but then the Country Squires had the wonderful green that was so popular back then in the 70s.
That's right.
That's now making a resurgence. But
and when we crashed it, folks, that was real American steel hitting a cedar tree, and that car didn't even get a dent in it.
how long was this shoot, guys? And how long was it for you, Ray, from the time you started at putting pen to paper or fingers to the typewriter keys?
Yeah, it might have been 2 years in total development, and our original schedule was 22 days. We had some rain out days, which kind of set us back. That last fight scene, we were shooting the last night at 2 in the morning, and the cast and crew were really upset and finally had to call it. But then I think we did about 2.5 more pickup days later, just to film some things that we couldn't get to. But so overall, it's kind of like your typical indie. You want to try to nail this in about 18 days, but it naturally will go a few more days after that.
Of course, of course. Now, do you guys know, how long was the editing process on this one?
Oh, I did the editing, and I think it took me about 3 months and plus. You know, I broke away from it for a while and came back to it. But there were parts of the movie that were so easy to edit, like when the station wagon pulls up to the music festival, and I plugged in Britain's song "WEEDHACKER Willie," and I couldn't believe it. I dropped the song, and it was perfect. It described the action perfectly. And so, again, salute to Britton Buchanan for that great song.
But see, that's nice when it works out that way. It makes your life a little bit easier.
It sure does, boy.
Rather than having like a temp score or something in there, and you're cutting it to the temp, and then you get your final music, and it's not matching right. And then you have a nightmare, and you want to throw things and break things and break out the weed hacker.
That's right.
Was there ever a point during this production where you actually wanted to break out the weed hacker and just hack something with it?
Alan, you were pretty happy with the way it went all along, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's a little funny side is, you know, we needed to put some actual weed in the scenes and everything. Of course, you go online and you try to find fake marijuana, and it's really, sometimes you feel like it's more expensive than the real stuff. And of course, us being in Austin, I think Jody was the one that told me, like, you know, if you need some more weed, you should just take a collection from the cruise.
That's a terrible thing for a stuntman to say. Terrible.
I know, but he was speaking true, I think.
Oh my God. Wow. So at the end of the day, and this is going to be coming out to entertain people, hopefully for another 50 years, what did you each take away from this experience of making the WEEDHACKER Massacre?
Alan, you want to go first?
You go.
Okay. Number one for me is I got to make this with my dear friend Allen Danziger. It gets him back out there, and I think he's just had the time of his life, and that means the most to me, and plus everybody that was involved in the project, to see their smiles and knowing they were part of this, that's fantastic. And, you know, of course, we hope that this does kind of become a little bit of a cult classic down the road. And Allen will still be beaming about this 50 years from now.
He won't be here, but
oh, really?
Debbie, I kiddingly said that my dream was to become the Colonel Sanders of horror, and with your help, it may come true.
For anybody that sees this film, they have to watch it through the credits, because the post-credit scene is absolutely to die for. I was rolling watching that. Just so funny. Ray, that was great creativity coming up with that.
That was Allen's idea. He was the one that came up with the idea of like a home invasion, and I loved it, and we found the right actor to play the attorney, and thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
And the commercial, the commercial on TV of the attorney is so that just... That was like the icing on the cake. I mean, because you could think of the Jacob M. Ronnie commercials and all of these others. And here in Los Angeles, you know, the Larry H. Parker commercials. Truer than life watching that. But we get that wonderful little tag for Weedhacker Massacre 2. Is that too much to hope for, or am I going to see a sequel?
Well, it depends on how much money Allen will loan us. You know, Allen probably makes a ton of residuals off of Texas Chainsaw, right, Allen?
No. Actually, Debbie, the real massacre took place after Chainsaw came out, because the original distributors, if you didn't know, were Mafia.
There were quite a few films that suffered fates because of distributors and investors who were a little on the shady side, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this movie made millions, and I think the first check I got was I could go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac.
That much? Wow.
That much.
So I think it's all going to depend on how the fans react. We have written some notes about a sequel, and of course we talk about it within the film itself, and we've laughed at some of our discussions about it. So it's very much a possibility, especially since my wife just left the room. I can say that it is a possibility.
Hey, I'm all for it, let me tell you. I am curious, who came up with the poker face mask?
Ray did.
I love that. That you should have out there marketed in time for Halloween.
Well, thanks. We're working on it. We've gotten some bids from various manufacturers. They come in a little high, and we are going to do a limited edition that's handmade. And if you'd like one, we'd be glad to send you one. But we're going to see how this initial reaction is to that. But thank you. We hope it will be a really good idea.
Oh, and if you can get it out before Halloween, that's perfect. It keeps in the same vein as Texas Chainsaw Massacre with the mask.
Yeah.
But now it could have signed editions, signed by Allen.
That's right. He's a master of marketing. You know, I'm sure he's thought of that.
But
you know what, Debbie, if you would send us or get us your address, and I'm going to send you one of my bobbleheads, one of my Chainsaw Jerry bobbleheads.
oh my God, that would be so lovely, Allen.
Okay.
Great.
You got it.
Yeah, that bobblehead is in the Bobblehead Hall of Fame, too.
I'm up there with Albert Schweitzer, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Bernie Sanders. So I'm with some good people.
Well, I hope that the Jerry bobblehead is right next to Ruth. I think that would be a lovely pairing.
I agree.
So what's next, guys? While you're ruminating on a possible sequel, what are you doing, Ray? Yeah.
Well, we're working like crazy on social media, so we are creating new videos and memes and everything all the time, just trying to put the film out there. We come out on October 17th. We're going to be doing a few shows. Allen's got a big show in Houston and then we're going to be doing Fear Fest in San Antonio, and then we're probably going to be doing some national shows as well. And the rest of it's just kind of social media. And then me personally, I'm working on another script and still making some more notes on WEEDHACKER Massacre 2, and that's keeping me pretty busy right now. How about you, Alan?
Well, I'll probably be going to Maine. I had to miss Maine this time because I had my left hip has hip replacement surgery.
Oh no!
So it's been a difficult few months for me, but I'm feeling so much better after the surgery, and I may be going back to Tokyo. I got a request possibly to go to Germany, so I'm really having the time of my life.
Aren't you going to Indiana like in a few weeks?
Yeah. For Halloween, I'll be in Indiana.
Yeah, but Ray, you know, Indiana is not as glossy as Germany and Tokyo. Come on.
Well, you know, it's right up there.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Now, do you guys have an Instagram account or anything for the film yet, or?
Yeah, we're on all three majors, including YouTube as well, but Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and we are having fans see our goofy stuff every day. Usually the tag is WEEDHACKER movie.
Well, guys, this has been a pure joy talking to both of you about the WEEDHACKER Massacre. I hope we get to do it again for WEEDHACKER Massacre 2.
You'll be our first call.
We hope so.
Guys, truly, this has been so much fun, and I had so much fun watching this movie. And now that I'm sitting here talking to you, the WEEDHACKER Willie song is like rolling around in my head again.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. Terrific.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It's a pleasure to meet you over the phone.
And I hope one day I get to meet both of you in person.
That'd be great. We'll come bearing gifts.
Ooh,
Yes.
I like gifts. Guys, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll chat sooner rather than later.
Thanks a lot, Debbie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Ray Spivey and Allen Danziger discussing the WEEDHACKER Massacre. And you can get your scare on and your laughs on this Friday, October 17th, when the WEEDHACKER Massacre hits streaming. And that's all the time we have today. I'll be back next week with more interesting and fun interviews. So until then, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.